All right. All right, Chris, bring us in. Do a better job than I did.
I will.
The light fades with death's cold embrace. You've already been zipped and tagged. Struggle as you might, it will not help. No one can break out of the body bag. Here to oversee the autopsy, your hosts, Chris Thomas and Broke Rider Dave.
What's good, everybody, and welcome to Body Bag Podcast. I'm Chris Thomas, and with me, as always, Daniel.
How we doing, everybody? It's me, Daniel.
Daniel Horny.
Yeah. That actually reminds me of a funny story. I used to work at a restaurant called Carrabba's, and I was a line cook, and it's like my second or third day there.
Yeah.
And it's one of the guys that worked with me didn't know my name, and he was on the other side of the kitchen. And this dude's yelling Thomas as loud as he can.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's like, who's Thomas? He's like, you're Thomas. I'm like, no, I'm David. Oh.
Cool story, Robert. Anyway,
yeah.
so this is kind of like a two-parter kind of thing. We just had, due to some scheduling conflicts, which is just kind of par for the course this season, we're putting out another top 10 from each of us. We just did Dave's top 10 creature features. So naturally, I have to inject a little bit of negativity in this and have my hashtag Chris hates Bad CGI.
Yeah. 2 recordings one day. Let's get it.
You know, for what better way for an audio platform than to talk about something that's strictly visual?
Yeah. Oh,
it's gonna have to be like, trust me, the CG is bad. You'll just have to take my word for it.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna go ahead and say straight off the bat, this might as well just be called Chris hates Stephen King, because I think probably about half of these are Stephen King.
Oh no.
So I didn't realize it until after I made the list. So I was like, damn, sorry, dude, but like some of these are not good, and not even his fault. But actually, one of them is his fault.
Yeah, the list you just gave me, just going through, looking through movies I can put on it. There's gonna be 2 Stephen King movies already on there.
All right, well, we'll save that one for
Evidently, we hate Stephen King movies.
Apparently, Dave hates good movies. So
yeah.
So now, as with my list, you tend to go like 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. In terms of mine is never usually like in terms of like I hate this one the most.
Yeah.
Maybe the last 2 for this one. So I'm just gonna go ahead and get started.
All right.
And number 10 is kind of now making this list. A lot of these movies I actually like, but whether it be a certain scene or whether it be something that takes me out entirely, this is why I'm a sucker for practical effects.
Yeah.
So, in order to kind of get that point across, number 10, you won't have any idea what I'm talking about when I say this. Ass blasters and screechers.
So ass blasters and screechers?
Do you have any idea what I'm talking about when I say that?
No.
The sequels to Tremors.
Okay.
The graboids don't stay underground very long. They get up on land in the form of ass blasters that fly and screechers that run around. Okay. Now, don't get me wrong. I love these movies. I love the Tremors movies. But the Tremors graboid is a practical effect monster. It's a physical monster that you can see. Some of them are animatronic, but there are certain scenes in which it's just completely computer generated, and it doesn't usually take me out of the movie, but it is noticeable.
Okay. Yeah.
And to go from a graboid, which is physically there, I can touch it and I can, it's right there, and then you see sometimes they're screechers are there, but sometimes it is completely like that is a computer generated monster right there. And although I still have fun with it, I just can't. I had to put it on the list, even though I love the series, because it's just very noticeable when it happens. But when you go and watch a sci-fi original movie or an original series, I mean, I'll say this, that for a sci-fi original series, some of the CG is a little bit better than a lot of the other ones that are on that show, but it is noticeable. So I just wanted to get that one out of the way real quick, just because I loved it, but I had to at least mention it.
Yeah, for as much as I love sci-fi, you can definitely tell a lot of times what their CG is not the best.
But sometimes that could just, add to the experience of watching it.
Exactly. We have a lot of love for the sci-fi channel on this podcast.
Now the rest of these are a mixed bag of whether or not I liked it or not. I'll just get into them.
All right.
So that was number 10. Got it out of the way. All right, number 9. Another movie I like. Although going back and relooking at it, the CG did not age well at all. I mean, at the time it was kind of infamous for not having the best CG, and that is Scorpion King from The Mummy Returns.
Okay. All right.
Now, the Mummy series, you can argue if it's... I would say that it is more action with some horror elements into it.
Exactly, yeah.
But I would say that the first one had more horror in it. But it's always been an action series at heart, but I will say that it kind of blends a little bit of horror stuff into it.
Yeah.
I think that's fair to say. But I was excited when the second one came out because I love the original Mummy with Brendan Fraser.
Yeah.
That was probably when it came out. I probably snuck in to see that movie a couple of times. I mean, it was PG-13, but I was super young. And second one came out, still loved it. I still love it to this day. But I gotta say, when Mr. Dwayne The Rock Johnson comes out in all of his Scorpion King glory, that you see that. I mean, the series have already had like some questionable CG moments, but oof. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. But I see, this is why it's kind of hard to describe CG in a podcast platform. But do yourself a favor, just go and watch it. You'll enjoy the movie. I still do, but I love The Rock. I'm glad it's a good thing that he has good success now, because especially for wrestlers having to go from wrestling and then going into acting. And this is his opening to like the world of acting.
Yeah, this is his first role. Yeah.
You at the time, I guarantee people were probably like, "Oh man, like this dude is not gonna have like a bright future in the realm of movies."
Yeah. Well, it's funny because The Rock, he was still jacked back then, but he was a lot smaller than he is now too. Like muscle wise, yeah.
Well, now that he has all these roles, he has to stay in shape.
Yeah, I mean.
All right, so that was number 9.
Yeah.
Mummy Returns. Number 8. I can't really get behind. This one's the first one into Stephen King land.
Okay.
I love the first It movie of the remake.
Yeah.
Good, solid movie. It has scary moments, good acting from, the child actors in that one. In my Chris Hates Kids episode, I put them higher on the list because I said that they were, the good actors in that.
Yeah.
But the second movie, I can't get behind some of that CG. Now, so when I say CG, sometimes this is in this list. Maybe it's not necessarily sometimes that the CG is bad in terms of the amount of work that's put in, but like if you've seen the second chapter to the It movie, if you go back and you look like that naked lady scene, and then Pennywise and his giant spider clown. I don't know, man. I just can't get behind it because the first one, they had, that in the first one where their friend's head was like decapitated and it was on a spider kind of thing running around in the haunted house.
Yeah.
That was 10 times more terrifying than giant spider Pennywise clown.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that one.
It was smaller and and both scenes are darkly lit, but the first one did it way better. And that was an example of good CG. The second one, I don't know. It just, between the lighting, having the strobe effect, and just go back and look at that naked lady scene. I mean, if you pause and look at that, you just go and like, man, what is this? It's just very questionable to me. I don't know why they went certain ways in that movie. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be some kind of professional in terms of that, but I don't know. I mean, what did you think?
Part 2 is definitely like the disappointment of it. with the CG.
And again, it's not necessarily that there wasn't any work put into it. It's that the word I have to just use is questionable.
Yeah.
I question some of the artistic direction of it.
Yeah.
Because it certainly didn't invoke fear.
Right.
It certainly invoked like confusion. Like, this is very weird. Kind of like, I don't know. Not scary.
Yeah.
It's just very strange why you went this route. So that one is just
that
was just dipping our toe into little Stephen King land.
Yeah.
Now, why don't we go ahead and take a deep cannonball into Stephen King land? Now again, love this movie, and I'm probably one of the few people. Whenever people talk about Stephen King movies, I'm usually the only one to ever bring up this movie, and that is The Langoliers.
Yeah, I still haven't watched this.
Now, acting is cheesy. I still love it. Some of it is over the top. I still love it. The score actually is very creepy. Score is actually one of the things that makes me kind of creeped out while watching this. Very creepy
like a
piano.
Good score could make a movie a lot better than it would be.
In fact, I might actually watch that later on tonight, in all honesty. I'm going to be up for a little bit.
Yeah.
But when we get to the title creature, and that is the Langoliers, which have been described as these like menacing creatures that gobble up young boys who are lethargic and lazy and stuff like that. It was supposed to be a fairy tale that Mr. Toomey's father told him to scare the living daylights out of him to keep him in line. And when we see these creatures come in, whoo boy. I can't defend it. I can't defend it as much as I love the movie. I cannot defend these giant, meaty testicle monsters with teeth. They're giant. Again, you can call them giant meatballs, giant bowling balls, giant testicle-looking things with just razor-sharp teeth. I implore you, as I'm talking about this, Dave, just type in Langoliers images.
That's what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, and you'll see what I'm talking about. I can't defend it. And when they start...
It's like an IKEA meatball with teeth.
Yes. And they look even worse. And you're just seeing a still image. It gets worse when they're in motion.
Like the way their mouth opened, it looks weird because it kind of looks like
this was
a meatball with a thong on.
This was in the early years of computer generation, when especially 3D computer generation. And again, can't defend it. I love the movie to death, but I can't get behind those giant scrotums. Like they you know how when you say actors are acting when they have to act against something that is clearly not there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's it completely. God bless these actors for pretending. They probably had no idea what these things were going to look like.
No.
But I still recommend that you go watch it because the concept of the movie is very intriguing and it's very interesting.
Okay.
I believe that was 7. I'm not the best at keeping numbers down with this. I mean, but whatever. So, 7. Sticking with Stephen King land.
All right.
Going to number 6. Now, The Shining is a great movie.
Incredible movie.
One of my favorites of Stephen King.
Yeah.
One of my favorite horror movies in general. The bar scene alone, which has no horror elements into it, is probably one of my favorite scenes in like movies, is him talking at the bar. I'd say the same thing for Dr. Sleep too, when they recreate like being at the bar scene. Like just those scenes really get me. But this isn't about Stanley Kubrick's The Shining.
No.
This is the miniseries The Shining. Now, there was a miniseries where Stephen King didn't like Kubrick's version of The Shining, so he wrote for the miniseries for one that came out. I don't know if he directed it, but I'm fairly certain that he wrote this miniseries for The Shining. Some differences, like instead of an axe, he has like this croquet mallet that he's wielding around. And it has a happy ending instead of a sad ending, in which the ghost of Jack Torrance goes and sees adult what's the kid's name? Well, they call him Doc. Yeah. See, the ghost of his dad watches him graduate like college or high school or something like that.
Yeah, Danny.
Danny.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, inferior to Kubrick's version. Now, there is a scene in which Danny is outside playing in the snow, and there are all of these hedge monsters that are, or not monsters, but hedge like clippings of like different animals or something. You know how people can like, you know, out in the hedge maze area, there's like these hedge animals, like one's a lion, one's a whatever.
Yeah.
And at one point, they're like trying to build tension, and they show that these creatures are coming to life and about to attack Danny, and then all of a sudden they're just like back to normal.
All right.
Hey, you can if you want to try to go. I wonder. See if you can type in. I wonder. Shining hedge maze or shining hedge monsters. I'm gonna type that in right now.
Shining 1997 hedge animals.
Hedge animals.
Oh my god, that looks awful.
Doesn't it? Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I'd say I'd only recommend watching it just so you can have it in your repertoire of movies and be like, all right, so you can see the difference between the two.
Yeah.
I believe it was a two-parter. I don't think that the acting was necessary. Well, it's been a while.
Yeah.
I think the guy who plays Jack wasn't necessarily a bad actor or anything like that. But I mean, you can't compare him to Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
But
it's tough to follow.
It's tough to follow, and I don't even remember how the kid. It's been a long time since I've seen it, but if you're listening, go check it out. It was a mini series back in the day. Same name. It was The Shining. I wouldn't say it's good, but again, everything is real, and then those hedge maze animals come to life, and you're like, ooh boy. You would have been way better off. You would have been way better off keeping the same score and building tension by just shooting the regular hedge animals.
Yeah.
Being still and alluding to something happening than throwing this whole thing off of these computer generated animals. All right. So Stephen King, you're on watch because everything else you can kind of forgive.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, he didn't have anything to do with, you know, he wrote The Langoliers, but he, you know, didn't. He wrote it, but you know he wasn't sitting there directing or anything like that. But the Shining miniseries he actually wrote for, so he had like a hand in it.
Yeah,
he could have been like, "Hey, nah, don't do that.
Let's not do this. Yeah.
Let's not do this."
Well, he probably thought it was gonna look, you know, like terrifying, and didn't.
So that is 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. So we are at 5.
5.
Let me go ahead and let's just delve a little bit away from Stephen King for just a little bit. So, did you see the Oscars?
I did see the Oscars.
Did you see Big Willie smacking Chris Rock?
I did.
Segue, I Am Legend.
All right.
When I make these lists, what I usually do is I try to write down as much as I can think of in terms of what I want on my list. And then when I hit a wall, I usually go and see other people's top 10 lists. So the reason why I do that is because I try to make my own list.
Yeah.
And then I go, all right, well, did I forget anything? Or am I overlooking something? And because I don't want to look at lists first, because then I feel like I'm just picking from other people's list and then the list isn't even mine.
Yeah, I feel you there.
But I do, like, once in a while, I'll come across like one or two, and I'll be like, all right, I agree with that one. That one can make it on. I usually try to just limit it to, like, only 2. If I make my list, and then if I go and see somebody else's list, and I'm like, yeah, that one probably deserves to be on it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Now, one that has been on multiple top 10 lists is the zombies from I Am Legend. And while those don't usually pop up in terms of my, like, go-to when I think of bad CG, I went back and looked at it, and I'm like, yeah, they're not necessarily good. And this movie has now, the movie I like. I do like the I Am Legend movie.
Yeah.
But I think that they would have been better off sticking with a practical kind of effect. Kind of like maybe a 28 weeks later kind of zombie.
Yeah.
The rage monster kind of thing. I think that would have made the movie a little bit better, as if the zombies looked more real. I mean, you can make your zombie CG if you want, but I don't know.
It was not the right choice for this movie. I
mean, it could have been, but looking back on it now, and you know, looking at it right now as I'm talking about it on the internet, yeah, Legend Zombies. Hold on, I'm just typing in. Yeah, it just looks weird.
Yeah.
looks kind of strange. Just a
Not
little.
really scary or creepy, just a little strange.
Yeah, they're ball. They definitely look infected, but I wouldn't call them zombies.
No.
Yeah, just weird. Again, I would have gone with like a 28 weeks later kind of monster. So the fact that this movie had a huge budget is the reason why I'm putting this on the list. And these, as I'm going through this list, it's not by like intensity or anything like that. Like
No.
the Langoliers monster, way worse CG than this. But I tend to just kind of like these are my top 10 in no particular order.
Yeah. Plus,
That one is
Langoliers
more well
like,
known, so
Langoliers is a lot older than I Am Legend too.
yes. And it was a mini series on. I think that may have also been on the Sci-Fi Channel.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true or not. It may or may not have been, but it definitely feels like it if you're watching it.
Yeah.
Again, I like the I Am Legend monsters, and certainly not the worst CG in the world, but it was on multiple top 10 lists, and had to go back and look at it, and I was like, yeah, I can kind of understand why.
Yeah.
So I think we're on our last three. Is that right?
This be number 4.
Yes. So we are on 4.
Yeah.
See, that's why I have to have you here because I will miscount.
Yeah.
All right, we took a little break from Stephen King land, so let's hop right back into Stephen King land.
Right back to Stephen King.
Right back into Stephen King land with number 4, Children of the Corn.
Okay.
Now you might be like, Children of the Corn doesn't have any real CG in it. It does in one particular spot. Now, this movie's always been entertaining. The man who plays Isaac, because it was a man.
Yeah.
Did you know that it was an actual adult who's playing the kid Isaac?
No.
The leader of all the kids and everything like that. He has that disorder that makes old, kind of like Andy Milonakis, if you ever heard of him.
Yeah.
That makes you look and sound a lot younger than you actually are.
Okay.
After he gets like struck by lightning and then they start burning the field. There is a small scene when the cornfield is in flames and you see this computer generated flames and smoke come out, and there's supposed to be like a face in the smoke of like he who lurks behind the hedges or behind the corn or whatever his name is called. He who stalks the corn. I don't know what the name that they gave it.
Okay.
I implore you, if you type in YouTube, if you type in Children of the Corn burning and you get to a certain spot, you will see the CG that I am talking about. In fact, I can tell you exactly what part to see it.
Yeah.
I'm typing it in right now. Okay. Type in Children of the Corn burning the cornfields. It's he who walks behind the rows. And at the 3-minute and 41-second mark, you will see exactly what I'm talking about.
You said what, 3 minute and
41 seconds.
All right, yeah.
You see at the 3-minute and 41-second mark, you see the photoshopped fire or aura thing come up, and then you see this face in the smoke, and then it all comes right back down like and goes away. That's that CG.
Yeah, that is not good at all.
Which is weird because everything else has been very, very. See, a lot of that's why CG is so weird, because a lot of people, when they start learning effects and everything like that, they probably want to try to use it as much as they can because they think, oh, this looks awesome. But then it gets very noticeable when you've done nothing but practical and real effects up until then.
Yeah.
Which is why you have to be really good at it, or you have to be able to hide it well. That did not.
When did the Children of the Corn come out? What was it, 90 something or?
Children of the Corn came out in 1984.
Yeah, because that seemed like that CGI was like very like 70s, 80s, but not like mainstream movies, but like B tier, straight to VHS type horror.
Yeah, but say what you want if you like the movie or not. But I don't know. For me, when it comes to CG, when it's not done well, it's very noticeable, and it's no it makes me have to kind of stop and be like, I have to point it out. And I mean, luckily, it was all the way at the very end. But at the very end, when you see that, you're like, okay, that's
Right,
weird.
yeah.
I think it would have been better if you just see a lot of these things. The reason why CG is so weird is that it makes people want to try to be fancy when a lot of the times a scene would be very better or would be a lot better if it was more restrained in terms
Yeah.
of what they're showing. Like that scene would have been a lot better if they just showed the cornfield literally on fire and then you still don't see the he who's behind the rose, but you just hear the fire crackling and you maybe hear just like a faint like demonic wail.
Yeah, I get what you're saying there.
And the same thing with the hedges that I was saying in the other Stephen King movie. Instead of showing these hedge maze monsters like walking around, just show the still real hedge maze monsters with certain score and
It would
allude
have
to them
worked.
moving.
Yeah, it would have worked out a lot better.
See, it gives people an excuse to try to be over the top, is why
Yeah.
CG is fickle. All right, so that was that number 4?
Yep, we're in your top 3.
So, number 3. I think this is the last Stephen King movie I'm talking about.
Okay.
And this one is from Sleepwalkers. About, I believe it was Sleepwalkers. I mean, look. Yeah, Sleepwalkers. Um, about a cat man who has sex with his cat mother, but they are also afraid of cats. And they can. This is a very hard movie to explain.
I have never heard of this
This
movie,
is a very hard movie to talk about because,
but I am looking at the Google images of it.
yes.
Oof.
Now, I say go to YouTube real quick. Again, good old YouTube, help. Again, this is why it's hard to do a CG talk
Yeah.
on a podcast because I'm going to have to keep constantly saying, all right, people, now if you go to YouTube and you type in this, you'll see what I'm talking about. Go to YouTube and type in. If you type in Sleepwalker's transformation in Google or on YouTube, the second video that pops up is just simply titled Sleepwalkers.
Sleepwalkers.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
that watch that. So it's a 26-second clip, and we see our main character running from the police. He's
what the?
sees a cat.
Yeah.
And then his face goes through all this weird, like, shape, and the cop is like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And he drives away.
Oh,
If you know about this scene, you know what I'm talking about. But because that scene is kind of infamous. That scene. You know what? If you want to laugh, go watch the movie. It had that character who you just saw. He's a cat creature man, and he has sex with his cat creature mother, but he's also trying to stalk this young woman. It has a police officer who has a cat that he takes on patrol with him.
Yeah.
And there's a scene where some guy gets killed by a corn on the cob. This movie's wild.
It sounds wild.
This movie is quite a journey.
Yeah.
But that specific CG scene, I can't overlook that. It's so funny how Stephen King has all of these good stories, but I can't necessarily blame him for these CG because he didn't computer generate the thing. But it's so funny how a lot of his stories get adapted, and the people who adapt them put in just questionable effects like this.
Yeah. Also, if you go to Google Images and search Sleepwalkers movies, scroll down just a little bit, you'll see a GIF of this transformation.
You'll see. It's worth taking a look at.
Yeah, because it is super ridiculous.
Now, these next two.
All right.
Number 2 is not necessarily limited to one specific movie because I've seen this effect in plenty of movies. I've seen this effect in uh, Hellraiser. I have seen this effect in anything that involves lightning. There is a lightning effect that is very. I think it's when like Pinhead first shows up. He shows up, if I'm not mistaken, like in a bolt of like electricity.
Yeah.
That effect.
Okay.
That lightning or electricity effect, you've all seen it. And you've seen it a lot in 80s, 90s movies, especially in sci-fi original movies. And I couldn't bring myself to just limit it to one movie because that effect has been used a lot. It is probably like the bottom of the barrel generic when you go use Photoshop or whatever editor you're using and you type in lightning effect. Is probably the first one that pops up.
Yeah.
Where it's so very obviously computer generated lightning. When I couldn't just put my finger on one specific movie. I couldn't pick on Pinhead or Hellraiser because I'd have been like, well, I've seen that effect used like 100 different times in 100 different movies.
Yeah.
But it's just an effect that I never really cared for. Just that fake lightning looking kind of stuff. So number 2 is a kind of a quick one, just because I didn't want it to be my number 1 because number 1 is something completely different. But 2 is just quick. I just never cared for that cheap lightning effect. But when you see it, you know it. But number 1, kind of a honorary thing because it's become synonymous with bad effects. It's become synonymous with bad acting in general too. And that is a company, the Asylum production company. They're the ones who put out Sharknado. They're the ones who put out stuff like Giant Shark versus Mega Squid. I saw a movie back in the day called Titanic 2. Asylum
versus Monster.
Yes, they do those kind of movies.
Yeah.
These, you talk about the sci-fi original movie series and stuff like that. These Asylum movies, certain ones are like a notch below in terms of effects budget. Now, I'm not even shitting on Asylum because they don't lose money. They make money.
Yeah.
And they also do rip off and do like rip off versions of very famous movies.
Yeah.
Especially when like a new release is coming out. For instance,
you got Vampires versus Zombies.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on Wikipedia looking at their list of movies right now.
Yep, Ape vs. Monster, Megalodon, Alien Conquest, Jungle Run, Atlantic Rim. Sounds a lot like Pacific Rim, doesn't it?
Alien versus Hunter.
Oh, hey, there's Titanic too. I know I saw you in there. Apocalypse of Ice, Monster Island, Sharknadoes 1 through 5 or 6 or whatever.
Yeah. Princess of Mars.
Yes, those. I mean, all of those sounds like some stuff you'd see in sci-fi, right?
Yeah.
I have to put on pick any one of those movies. I mean, if you know Sharknado, you know how bad a lot of the CG is. The Asylum movies are perfect. Friday night, get a bunch of friends together and watch these bad movies because they're hilarious to watch.
I mean, you're not gonna see almost any of these in a theater, but
no, I don't think any of them. I don't think any of these go into theaters.
No.
But you watch these because it's fun to pick apart, and but it's like a lot of the times the CG they don't even try. But you also watch because it's like a lot of the times the actors are either way over the top or stilted, or they're taking themselves way too seriously in a Asylum movie.
Yeah. Like, if you're acting in an Asylum movie, you should just have fun with it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that people who are in an Asylum movie know, all right, this is going to be ridiculous. Just kind of go with it.
Yeah.
I'm in a movie called Ape versus Monster. So
Right.
not even a specific monster, it's just ape versus monster. What kind of just a monster.
Monster. Yeah.
That
It's
sounds like
base.
monster versus creature.
It's basically a ripoff of Godzilla versus King Kong.
Yes, that's what they do. I mean, they did a movie called Atlantic Rim about a giant robots fighting giant monsters. It's Pacific Rim,
Yeah.
but made with a vastly smaller budget.
Yeah. Abraham Lincoln versus zombies.
Yes. See, now you can't afford not to watch a movie called Abe Lincoln versus Zombies.
No, you gotta watch that, but it's a direct ripoff of Abraham Lincoln Zombie Hunter.
Vampire Hunter.
Was it Vampire Hunter?
Yeah.
It's been a while since I seen it. Yeah.
I mean, are you really going to pass up the opportunity to watch such classics as Sharknado or Titanic 2?
Probably gonna watch Titanic 2 tonight.
I got audibly angry with my friends when we watched that at the very end.
I am intrigued on how we do a sequel of Titanic.
Oh, Titanic is known for having like there's been a couple of animated sequels to Titanic that are infamous for being horrible.
You got snakes on a train.
I don't think that was
Sounds
Asylum.
familiar.
I don't know if that was Asylum. Oh, that's Snakes on a Train?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was like, Snakes on a Plane, that's not an Asylum. Oh, yeah. See, again, Snakes on a Train. That's the kind of Asylum stuff we're talking about.
Yeah. Asylum might be my new favorite production company.
That's why it was kind of an honorary mention, because it's like the CG is horrible. I can't back the CG at all, but part of it is like what makes it laughably fun to watch. So that's
like
kind of
I'm gonna enjoy these movies.
So number one in Chris Hates is kind of like I hate it, but weirdly recommend it.
Yeah, the Da Vinci Treasure.
Yes. We're gonna maybe my next movie review that I say that we watch will have to be an Asylum movie. But that's my top 10 Chris Hayes CG. Thank you for kind of bearing with me with this, because it's very hard to describe this in a podcast medium.
Yeah, I made it hard on Chris.
Hashtag Chris Hates Dave.
Yeah.
So, depending on which comes out first, this is kind of like a two-parter, since we had to reschedule our interview with Janine Pipe this week.
Yeah.
Dave and I did our top 10s, and they're gonna probably come out around the same time. Dave is doing we're switching it up. Dave is doing a hashtag Dave Hates, which I gave him. He hates good movies, so he has to go in anything that is certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes that he doesn't like is going to be on the list.
Yeah.
And Dave, you're going to give me, what am I going to do? What am I going to do a top 10 things that I like for once?
We're going to do Chris's top 10 found footage movies.
Top 10 found footage movies.
Yeah.
I'm almost oh god knows. I'm gonna have to, well, I don't know. I was gonna all right, that's fine.
Yeah.
A very limited, a very narrow niche.
I don't know. There is a lot of found footage movies out there.
All right. Well, I mean, I know we all know at least two of them that are going to be on my list.
Yeah.
It's like the granddaddy of found footage movies, so we already know what's going to be on there.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm going to give myself a handicap and say that the Blair Witch Project, I'm limiting myself to not put that on there.
Okay.
Because I feel like that is just an obvious one.
That's the obvious number one pick.
That's the obvious number one pick for I know a lot of people who hate it, who hate found footage movies because it gives them headaches. It doesn't give me a headache.
No, I love found footage movies.
So I don't feel right going into this, but it goes without saying that Blair Witch Project would have been number one on my list.
Yeah.
So I'm going into this without having Blair Witch on it. So barring that one, found footage.
Yeah, I gave it to you because it's my second favorite like horror niche is found footage movies.
Oh, I love found footage movies.
Yeah.
If done correctly, it's very, very fun.
Yeah, you should probably, get Shudder. There's some on there that are really good.
Well, when they start sponsoring us.
Yeah,
maybe
Shudder. We are working hard. And I've recommended you multiple times on this podcast, so
their love apparently is unrequited.
Yeah, so go ahead and sponsor this podcast. It'd be great.
But that's treats for another week. But in the meantime, thank you guys for bearing with me with this list. And thank you again to all of our listeners for sticking around with us during season 2. And hopefully after this comes out, we'll have our interview with Janine Pipe and we can review Dog Soldiers and promote her book about it.
Yeah, I'm excited for what we got coming up. All right, everybody, have a good week.
Take it easy. Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to Body Bag Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe and leave us a comment as to what you'd like to hear us review or any horror movie topics you'd like to hear us rant and rave about.
And while you're at it, you can find us on Twitter at BodyBagPod and on Instagram at BodyBagPodcast.
Thanks, and we'll see you next time.